Yep. Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Jeff Stevens,
Here.
Arm Baines,
Present.
thank you. Bruce Johnson.
Here.
Bill Conley. Here. Todd Kimmelshoe. Here. Bo Shepherd.
Here.
Mark Boomgarden.
Present.
Michael Pasquale.
Here.
Charlie Hoppin. Here. Gary Marler.
Here.
Jeremy Chapdelaine.
Here.
Mike Morris.
Here.
Chris Schmittel.
Here.
Okay, Todd, can you lead us in the Pledge of
Yeah,
Allegiance?
please stand. Salute. Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to public comments. Members of the public will be allowed to address the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency Board of Directors on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. Any member audience who may wish to bring a matter before the board that has not been placed on the agenda may do so at this time. However, state law provides that no action may be taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Is there any public comment, please? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. I'll take a motion to accept the consent calendar.
Second.
Oh. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, so approved. So, all right, now looking for, let's see, approvals. Oh, we're going to move on to the approval of the Second Amendment with R&R Horn Contractors Incorporated for the Orville Wildlife Area Thermo Lido Recreational Improvement Project, delegation of authority to reject all bids if necessary.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Michael Bissett here. So yeah, this item is to approve a second amendment to the agreement we have with R&R Horn. This is extending the duration date of when we award the construction contract. As I reported last month when when the board approved the first amendment, we're still waiting on FERC approval. And today was when the amendment expired, and we still do not have FERC approval. So R&R Horn agreed to another 30-day extension. We don't think it's going to take that long to get FERC approval, but we wanted to be conservative there. So with the board's approval for me to sign that amendment, second amendment actually, I'll go ahead and do that. And we're going to keep pushing hard, working with DWR to get FERC approval in order so we can award the construction contract. So that's my presentation. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, see if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Is there any, okay.
Michael, I asked before, when we did the first extension, they didn't ask for any fuel surcharges or any amendments to their original contract. Did they leave that the same?
They did currently. I mean, we're having discussions, but we can't entertain any cost changes right now before we award a contract. That would be bid tampering. But we are having conversations so that once we award the contract, we can evaluate if there are some cost increases as a result of this delay, and we can deal with it at that time. Correct.
Any other comments from the board? Any public comment? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to pass it.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Jeff Stevens,
Yes.
Mike Ziegenmeyer. Yes. Bruce Johnson.
Yes.
Bill Conley.
Aye.
Todd Kimmelshoe.
Aye.
Bo Shepherd. Yes. Mark Boomgarden.
Aye.
Michael Pasquale.
Aye.
Charlie Hoppin. Yes. Gary Marler. Yes. Jeremy Chapdelaine.
Yes.
Mike Morris.
Yes.
Chris Schmittel.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Presentation from the Sutter Extension Water District on the Sunset Pump Station Rear Removal Project.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So I thought this would be a very interesting presentation to bring to the board's awareness of what's going on up here in the Levy District 9 area. I heard about this project. I mean, this project's been in the works for quite a while, but I heard about it through a different presentation at a Department of Water Resources meeting, and I reached out to Jonathan Kors to see if he'd be willing to come in before the board and provide an update, give a good overall presentation. So Lynn Phillips is the director at the Sutter Extension Water District, and we worked with Lynn when we were doing our Feather River West Levee project. And Jonathan was part of our design team. So Jonathan was the co-design team lead back when we were hot and heavy into the Feather River West Levee project. So we have an extensive experience with Jonathan. So, and I know they have somebody from DWR. I didn't catch your name. I'm so sorry. But they're going to provide an overview, and you can ask questions after their presentation. So Lynn, I'll turn it over to you. Microphone.
Hi, thank you for being here. My name is Lynn Phillips. I am the general manager for Sutter Extension Water District. I've been a manager since 2006. We thought it'd be good. So we have Rachel Belante, who is the project manager for Department of Water Resources, and Jonathan Kors, as has previously been introduced, works as our owner's representative. So I thought it'd be good to tell some of you people I know and know quite a bit about Sutter Extension Water District, and some don't. So I thought it'd be good to talk about the district a little bit before we get too far into the project. Okay, next slide. So Sutter Extension Water District was formed in 1950. We purchased the old Sutter Butte Canal Company, and we have 111,000 acre feet of pre-1914 water rights that from a 1969 water rights settlement agreement. We have a 1970 joint operating agreement with Richvale Irrigation District, Biggs West Gridley Irrigation District, and Butte Water District. We're all four part of what's called the joint water districts. We share one water right that is split through the joint working agreement. We are approximately 25,000 acres, of which approximately 19,000 acres are farmed annually. Approximately 16,000 acres of that is rice, and the rest is miscellaneous tree crops and a few pastures and some general crop. We also have an appropriative water right of 65,000 acre feet that is allocated through the same 1969 water rights settlement agreement that is diverted at Sunset Pumps. The maximum diversion rate at the pumps is 234 CFS. It's important. The pumps are important part of our operation. Our water comes from the Oroville After Bay. Our main supply comes from the Oroville After Bay, but we lack capacity through our canal company, our canals, which we share with Butte Water District for the most part. And so that's why the important part of having the pumps is to make up the lack of capacity. We pumped an average of 7,600 acre feet per year between 2021 and 2025. Most of the pumping occurs in the spring, kind of this period, not so much this year because of late rains and whatnot, but they're used mostly to make up the lack of capacity during rice flooding season time when all the rice fields are flooding. And then there are a few other periods through the summer when the orchards are going heavy and the rice are trying to reflood their chemicals. And then the majority of the summer they're just used to regulate the levels so we get a consistent flow from the north. Next. And for the next part of the presentation, Rachel Belante is going to talk about the project some more. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. So I'm going to talk about the project background. We have two co-equal goals of the project. The first is to accommodate the passage of threatened migratory fish species at the Sunset Weir. And our other goal is to preserve the overall water delivery system stability and reliability with no change in SEWD's operations. Next slide, please. So our project location, you can see it is approximately 2 miles southeast of Live Oak. And in the smaller picture there, you can see the overall area, the pumping station on the weir across the river, and you'll notice an area of erosion on the left bank. Next slide, please. And so in terms of our project components, the first is removal of the weir. With the removal of the weir, the water level behind it is obviously going to be lower, and so that necessitates the replacement of the pump station that you can see. And that project component will also include installation of state-of-the-art fish screens. And then we also have stabilization of this erosion area on the left bank. That started in 2019 when there was a failure of the weir. That failure has been repaired. However, the erosion on the left bank continues. So as part of the project, it's going to be laid back in place and stabilized with some bioengineering techniques. Next slide, please. In terms of where the project is in relationship to the levees, on the project side of the river, on the west side, we are essentially adjacent to the levee. And then on the opposite side, the levee is set back by about half a mile. Next slide, please. Just for some additional background, the weir is about a 10-foot tall boulder weir. It spans the entirety of the river, and it was installed in the 1920s. And it is operated and maintained by SEWD for diversions of water from the pump system into the main canal. Next slide, please. In terms of why the project is needed, so we know that the weir can impede or delay fish passage at low and moderate flow conditions. And there's some very important species that migrate through that area, including threatened species. We have the Central Valley steelhead, spring and fall run Chinook salmon, and green sturgeon. And so the project is going to improve passage through that area for all of those species and give them unimpeded passage to 28 miles of river upstream of the weir. Next slide, please. All right, and I will turn it over to Jonathan for more of the project details.
Thank you, Rachel. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide depicts the limits of removal of the existing weir. This is a bathymetric survey, and the dashed line with the yellow highlighting is the limits of that excavation of the weir. If you go to the next slide, there's a graphic that displays the cuts and fills on the project, and the intent here is to take that weir removal, the soil coming out of the excavation, and use it elsewhere on the project and try to minimize the off-haul as best as possible. So in the red, that's where the excavation is going to occur, and in the blue, that's where the fill is going to go. Next slide, please. So this is a site plan of the pump station itself. I've highlighted the levee. We're here today because we are pursuing our 408 permit, and we will need a local levee district endorsement, which is LD9. We've been talking to Drew about the project, and when we're done today, we'll probably have another meeting with him and the district's engineer to kind of finalize what the ask is. But you can see that we're mostly out of the levee, except for our access point there, and we will have to drive on the levee to access the project during construction. But the majority of the actual facilities are outside the levee limits, and the only item that's within it is a replacement of some of the piping for the discharge pipes, which go through the levee and then into the Sutter Butte main canal. So one of those pipes has already been slip line and brought back up to current standard. We have 2 more to go on this project, and that's part of the project overall. Next slide, please. This is a profile view of the pump station. Actually, if you go back, sorry about that. I just want to point out the main intake here is 5 14-foot diameter fish screens, and they're conical screens that'll be sitting in the river in an intake bay, and then those transition the flow into 6 pumps of various sizes And as Lynn mentioned, we're just replacing the flow capacity that the station has now. But the entire station will be a state-of-the-art facility able to operate efficiently with the water surface now about 9 to 10 feet lower. Okay, next slide. So the pump station, sump and intake are a reinforced concrete structure, pretty deep. It'll sit on a mat foundation with a series of piles that'll need to be driven into the riverbed. To facilitate that, on the far right side, you'll see a cofferdam. We'll have a sheet pile cofferdam that separates us from the river, and that'll be one of the first orders of business once we begin removing the weir, and we have the weir on the west side down, then it'll be time to start driving these piles. And there'll be a slide coming up here which shows how we're going to do that. It's probably the most disruptive part of the construction project. Next slide. This is an isometric view of the pump station. This pump station designer is Stantec. We have a consultant team that has come together for the project. Stantec is the designer of the pump station, and ESA Associates is the designer of the weir removal and the left bank repairs and overall site restoration. You can see the 5 intake pipes and then the pin piles that the foundation is resting on, and then the pump discharge lines and the motor deck. If we can go back, I wanted to point out one more thing about this profile view. In talking with Levy District 9 and their engineer, we understand it's important to make sure our critical components are above the 1957 water surface elevation. So that's where we've set our deck at elevation 84, which is actually the 200-year plus 2 is roughly equivalent to the 1957 at this location. So that's a key elevation for our design. Okay. And then one more. Oh, actually, sorry. One more thing to point out in green is there's a pretty significant backwash system, piping. We have a series of pumps that are dedicated just to be able to remove the sediment. This is a concern of the districts that we make sure that the current low level of maintenance that they've enjoyed over the life of this structure is continued as we have sort of a new flow regime right there in front of the pump station. We want to make sure we're not having accumulated sediment at the screens or within the pump station. So there's been a fair amount of attention put on that so far in the design. Next slide. This is a planned view of the restoration of the erosion area on the left bank. And as Rachel noted, that occurred starting in 2019, and it's been sort of a progressive failure. With each winter, it expands. So it's pretty important that we get this arrested, and the approach here is not to restore the riverbank there, but to set back the slopes on that area and stabilize it, both by reducing the slope and adding rock slope protection on the bottom half of the scarp area, and some willow plantings and vegetation on the upper part. Next slide. So this is a cross section of the repair area. You can see with the dash line there at station 2+00. If you look up, you'll see there's a pretty steep vertical scarp, and the approach here is to lay that back and have some toe reinforcing with the fill there, and then to come back and restore it with rock and willow pole and other plantings on the slope. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the primary construction-related impacts for the project. We are looking to have a pretty significant crane ramp installed by the contractor. This is the designer's representation of what they believe is needed. The means and methods of construction will be left up to our contractor. But for the purposes of obtaining the rights of entry here and the rights of way to construct this ramp, we've put this drawing together. It's a pretty significant ramp into the site, and then a crane pad, which will allow them to install the sheet piles and then ultimately build the structure. There's a temporary pump station. So this is the timing on this has to be pretty well orchestrated, as you all are aware. We have a limited work window both in the floodway, which is April 15 to November 1st, but actual work in the water is even further constrained to July 15 through September 30. So we've got to get the existing weir out. We got to get the cofferdam constructed, and we also have to make sure that the district's water source is up and running, which for the duration of the project will be the temporary pumps, which you can see on the right-hand side of this drawing. So it's going to be a very tightly orchestrated construction. And I think the last thing I want to point out here is we're also working with LD9 and the local landowner here to be able to have a more permanent access on the south side of the station, which will require us taking some property from that landowner. And we're not sure whether we're going to be able to be successful in that, but we are asking for the ability to put in another ramp that's permanent on the south side of the pump station property. And that's the T ramp you see there, just to the left of the property line for the Sunset Pump Station. So both of those things are things we'll be talking with LD9 about and Drew's engineer, and we hope to be able to obtain permission to do all that. Next slide, which should be the last slide. This is the schedule for the project. Again, there's a lot of moving parts here, and just as Mr. Bissett is very familiar, getting these projects together, getting all the pieces to fit, it's basically a train you're trying to build the tracks ahead of, and you just keep moving, knowing that you got a lot of permits and right-of-way and other things that need to come together to get there. We are scheduled for construction in 2027. Right now, I put a line and an arrow at where we're at. We're past the 65% and approaching 95%, but there are a few critical items. We have one more round of geotechnical borings to do in the river, and that has to happen in the 2026 in-water work window, which is, again, July 15 through September 30. We have to obtain the right-of-way that we've talked about for access here. And most importantly, the 408 permit, we need to get that approved and in hand in time to bid this project in December and January of 26 through 27, and then constructing when the floodway window opens up in April. So that's the presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you may have. Yeah.
I've got one question. As far as the sequence of events, will you have the new pumping plant in and functional before you reach the weir?
Yes. Yeah. That all has to come together before we start taking things apart, because once the weir is gone, the existing pump station won't be able to operate at that lower water level.
I guess the root of my concern is when you start taking that weir apart, pardon me, I'm familiar with a weir much smaller than that had riprap about the size of the inside of this building, and it was delayed for several years because of giant garter snakes.
Yeah.
Any contingency if somebody finds a wiggly out there?
So we do have ESA performing our environmental compliance portions of the project. The garter snake is, this is not garter snake habitat in the river itself. It is on the other side of the levee. So we do have to interact with that potential species, but not on the river. But we have the fish to contend with, which is what's constraining our work window between the July 15 and September 30. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the board? Thank you for the presentation.
And Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. Jonathan, on the temporary bypass system, what impacts will it have to the levee, if any, for those pipes running across?
Right. Can you back up just a little bit? I'll tell you where to stop. Right there. Yeah, perfect. So this layout was done by Stan Tech to show maximum take on the north side of the property, which is another landowner we're coordinating with and trying to obtain rights to lay these pipes, these temporary pipes, which will, in their configuration here, go up and over the levee. Now, the contractor could also tie these pipes into a manifold and connect them to the existing pipes, and that's another option. And so in that second case, we wouldn't have to do anything to the levee, but in this configuration, we'll have to have a ramp up and over those pipes.
Okay, yeah. That's what I saw. I wasn't sure what you guys were envisioning there, so thank you.
Yes, yeah. So no excavation into the levee. It would all be fill over the top.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
Thank you.
Okay, now we're moving on to probably the most exciting point of the meeting is the approval of the proposed 2024 through 30 budget.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to just introduce this item before we start the Sean show here. There's a few things I wanted the board to be aware of as Sean makes this pretty detailed presentation. So number one, this budget delivers upon the board-approved strategic plan and advances all of our planned flood risk reduction projects and our environmental restoration and improvement projects. Larson, Roselle and Associates, you'll see, Sean's going to highlight this, they've scaled back a little bit on the ops fund expenditures, the operations fund. We've dialed that down a bit because as we were budgeting previously, we haven't been spending that much money. So we were able to reduce that amount that we budget, and therefore it provides the operation fund to maintain a much healthier balance as we advance into the future. Also, Sean took a real close look at our Tudor flood risk reduction project. We had previously budgeted about $15 million for that project, and we were able to look at our actuals and where we're at in our contracts, and we were able to dial that down to $14 million. So we have about $1 million savings there. We're also, as part of this budget, we're incorporating our Sutter Bypass Phase 2 design work. So and I'll get into more detail when I make my presentation, but we're trying to get DWR to budget $5 million to advance the 12-mile remainder designs of the Sutter Bypass East Levee. We're trying to entice them by offering $5 million of Sabufka money and $5 million of Calpine money to incentivize the state to advance that additional work. So we're incorporating that into our budget, and Sean will highlight that. Our net working capital by 2030, after factoring in all of these projects and expenditures, we're looking at a balance of about $10.5 million in 2030. This will allow this board to advance the agency's mission as we move forward on our projects. And then lastly, I just want to highlight that the budget is conservative. So as Chris and I work with LWA on this budget, we've been conservative in the fact that we haven't included annual interest payments that we receive on all the money that we have kind of in the bank. And lately we've been drawing or gaining about $1 million a year in interest. So we haven't factored that in. We haven't factored in the SJAFCA payments that we're going to start receiving in the future. We took that out previously, and we're keeping it out until that money starts rolling in. And then lastly, we do get annual increases in our assessment district revenues, but we're consistent on what we budget for that revenue, and it has been increasing every year, but we're not taking that into account. So all of those factors combined make it a lot more conservative budget. So when I say we'll have $10.5 million at the end of in 2030, after advancing all our projects, it probably will be healthier than that. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Sean.
Thanks, Michael. I think that Michael gave a very good overview, I think, of some of the highlights of this amended budget. One of the things, though, maybe starting at like a higher altitude and kind of working our way down, just starting with the whole process here for those board members who are new maybe or haven't gone through this process before. Next slide, please. So first of all is the process. It's a two-step process where every year, 1 month, typically May, we introduce a preliminary budget, which isn't approved or finalized. It's just sort of a draft of where we are, from a financial perspective. The second process, obviously, next slide, actually, we'll come back to that one. And the next stage then would be to adopt a finalized version of that preliminary budget, which we would set for June for this year. Typically, it's always in June. Back to the previous slide. So the purpose of the budget amendments are obviously because of updated financials that we received throughout the year, but also too, the scope itself would change, and the budget needs to reflect that when situations like that occur, and also an extension of time. Our last year's finalized budget was approved through 2028. We added an additional 2 years to this budget that we're proposing now. We will go into like more details on that as we kind of go along, and I'll give an overview of expenditures and revenues over the course of until 2030. An overview of ongoing work through. I guess it didn't update it, but it should be 2030, not 2028 for ongoing work. And then we'll request staff's recommendations, or we'll give staff recommendations, and then open up for questions and comments. Okay, next slide. Next one. So 2030 budget includes 24-25 actuals, 25 through 28, which was, we're amending that previous version of what we did, what was finalized last year, and then adding an additional 2 years, like I had mentioned before, 28 through 30, and work presented in there. These are presented together in the board packet that was sent out. You could see a comparison of last year's approved budget and this current year's projected budget or proposed budget. So to approve the 24 through 30 budget with updated costs and revenue projections, they include actual and projected project costs, cash flow timing, additional account detail for project cost tracking, and a new budget is an update that reflects, changes to the adjustments to programs. Next slide. So starting at like a higher altitude, and then we'll kind of work our way down into details. It's a little hard comparing like, a 24 through 28 budget to a 24-30 budget, right? But there should be some big points here that kind of stand out. For example, like the debt service, with an additional 2 years, that's an additional $9 million right there, right? So you see that change between the two columns in this table here. Expenditures, same thing. There's an increase obviously for that, for additional work that's included in this budget, as revenues are as well, since funding sources for that work are also included. So like revenues, $87.4 million increased primarily due to additional projects that are included with that additional 2 years of scope. Likewise with expenditures, $84.5 million additionally included. Next slide. So to break it down a little bit, just by project, what you're seeing really here are most of the additional costs associated with through 2030 are because of Oroville wildlife work. Like for last year, for example, we didn't include a $32 million WCB grant, which we had gained over the last year, and therefore it's reflected here with work extended out until I think actually for that one it's only like 2029 maybe, or 2028. But included here is just additional costs associated with that. Likewise, too, last year we didn't include, last year's budget did not include work, most of the phase two, all of phase two work and the construction work for the bypass. And you can see that lift, that jump here from $3 million to $72 million in cost. Those are really the bigger highlights. Some stuff did decrease, obviously. Michael had mentioned earlier, we initially projected Tudor construction to be $15 million when we had budgeted last year. We had lowered that, given the execution of contracts and so forth, down to about $14 million. Next slide. And then for revenues, you could see that reflective here as well. Down towards the bottom, you see those zeros for the current approved budget. The addition of, the inclusion of construction on the bypass and phase two design work, that just, lifts that up there too. Like, so you see a higher revenue amount there, along with OWA as well, the Wildlife Conservation Board specifically. And then obviously assessments with an additional 2 years of scope. we always budget for a total of $6.5 million in assessment revenue. Typically, we receive, over the last few years, we received somewhere maybe between 6.6 and 6.8 million. So the additional, it's never budgeted in because we can never guarantee that that's the case. We still budget for that 6.5 million. And you can see that reflective here, an additional 2 years of receiving that capital, that assessment revenue. Next slide. So total expenditures for 24 through 30, net increase of 83.4 million, and a net increase in revenues of 87.4 million. Changes in capital funding and projects, like Michael had highlighted, the implementation of Robinson's Riffle WCB grant, Tudor flood risk reduction, and a decrease in those initially projected costs from last year. And then additional work on the bypass also included in this budget. And then, a big highlight too is actually shifting expenditures within our operating fund. Our operating fund, next slide please. Our operating fund was actually set up for, initially, we had a cost share program under this old grant, EIP. And EIP was like a $250 million grant. And we were cost sharing with them, and it was varied basically on the amount of cost share based on the reach along the levee that they were repairing. But what happened was, though, that like under the agreement, when that was executed, there were they paid the state cost shared also in a lot of overhead related costs, and there's been an effort in recent years. Since EIP, UFR had been scaled back, and other grants don't have the same sort of agreement for covering, indirectly covering some of these operating costs. The idea was to build up a war chest within with the operating fund, and just, we would always budget for, a certain amount with a 5% gain per year. It hasn't really come to fruition, though, where we've ever even come close to meeting those initial expectations, those initial projected numbers for expenditures. And we've always come short. And you can see that reflected here. Like for 24-25, for example, the actual expenditures amounted to less than 600,000. There is still some cost sharing with the capital fund, but a lot less than there had been in the past, and still nowhere near the projected amounts that we had initially thought of, like in previous years. So we didn't want to overextend our hand here and just start budgeting for $600,000 a year for operating expenditures. There still is some shift that will come from the capital funds, so we expect. So I did scale it back a little bit, though, and over time that did give some savings. And like Michael had said, I think that this is, the expenditures, it's a conservative budget in the sense that we still anticipate the operating fund to really take on most of those costs later on. Next slide. So just some other highlights under capital work. We had talked about FERLIP is basically closing out at the end of this calendar year. There isn't much remaining on that, just some encroachments in OMR, R&R. The Tudor flood risk reduction project, design was completed, construction is underway. The bypass, the core work, the Army Corps work, most of that is wrapped up this year. I think we've had very minimal costs on it for the current fiscal year, 25-26. Sediment removal, we had finished the design phase with a grant from CNR, and I know that staff is looking for potential funding opportunities with either CDFW or CNR A or DWR for the construction phase later on. Next slide. Bypass work, we had talked about additional funding there. We anticipate for phase 2 design and the phase 1 construction. Regional planning, we're closing out phase 4. We're currently in phase 5, I believe, until the end of next calendar year. And then there's a potential for phase 6 coming after that. the FRALIFA, the Feather River West Levee Financing Authority. That was a project that we wrapped up a while ago, but we're still seeing reimbursements in the tune of, I believe, $80,000 over the next 15 years. And we have been receiving that. Thank you, Drew. OWA projects, we had talked about with Robinson's Riffle and the WCB funding for that. And then other projects, just assessment district administration. We have a development impact fee that we are collecting on. And then just further grant pursuits. Next slide. So at this point, staff recommendation to the board is preliminarily approve the proposed amended 24-30 budget. Schedule a public notice for June, should be, June 10th, our next meeting, with a draft notice provided, and make a proposed amended 24-25 budget available to the public for review, which we do at the Sabufco office. And next slide. And so I'll just open up for questions.
Any questions from the public? Any questions from the board? Well, thank you for a riveting.
I tried to make it as exciting as possible.
It was. It was. Thank you.
We need a vote on this to
Make a motion to
staff
approve.
recommendation.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Okay, receive the file monthly financial report.
All right, I told Sean to make this one brief after coming off of this budget presentation, so go ahead, Sean.
So this actually, the intent was initially to cover through March, where we were trying to get caught up with the city. Unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition, so we only got through completion of April. So this is a presentation on April finances. We ended at about 18.7 million in ending working capital, with about 20.2 million estimated to date. Operating revenue, we had received our $750,000 in assessment revenue and allocated it to our operating fund. We've got about almost 7 million that we received through the capital fund, with about 3.5 million pending. Next slide, please. You can see that broken down here. The table on the left, you can see first the comparison between, revenues received for the operating fund, and then in comparison to the capital fund, for a total of about 7.6 million through the end of February. Total assessments, like I said, we received our first payment from Sutter County, which is 3.9 million. Some direct bills, and Butte County's contribution. Next one's expected in June. We received the next payment. Next slide. Estimated expenditures for 25-26 to date. You can see primarily most of that work currently to date through the fiscal year is about 6.7 million for the Tudor project. Some work in civil, and then OWA is kind of ongoing as well. Financing, we paid our April debt service. The next debt service, the April debt service was reflective of the refinancing that we had conducted back in December, January. October's will be as well. About $5 million are due by October 1st. Next slide. So ongoing financial activities, just some closeout work with some of these grants related to OWA mostly. The rest are just kind of ongoing. The agency is sent to members. The updates sent to members of the agencies for development impact fee for the year. That was sent out a week or two ago. Ongoing coordination with YC financing or finance for implementation of a new finance software. That's just part of getting caught up with our reconciliations. Like we're only a month behind, but we like to get back up to that point. And then prepping for agency preliminary budget in May and adoption in June, which we've just gone over. And then also in June will be included ops contracts for fellow partners. Next slide. I think that's it, right? Yep. Just open up for questions if there are any.
Any questions? Okay, thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have the presentation of file program project updates.
All right, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. So this is the presentation of our program and projects and everything we have going on here. I think I can conduct this. Yep, I got it. Okay. I wanted to highlight the Cap to Cap trip, which was the week of April 20th, and several of you attended that trip. My focus primarily was a lot about the FEMA Ag Zone. So we had a lot of Scott Shapiro and Chairman Stevens and I, the three of us, went to these meetings here with House Financial Services, Senate Banking, both majority and minority. And we were trying to promote, NFIP, during the NFIP reauthorization, we wanted to get some language in to help ag zones. And primarily, we were looking for several items to be changed, which would allow limited construction of new ag structures in floodplains when you couldn't elevate or floodproof, when it just didn't make sense for those type of improvements to be made. And also to allow umbrella policies for when a farmer could bundle multiple structures on a property and reduce his costs. So we had a lot of good meetings. We actually, Scott and I have been doing this for the past, several years at least. This one, we felt we had the most movement and improvements in our the conversations that we had and some of the direction that we received back. And we're going to look to advance those discussions in the near term here with our federal lobbyists. So more to come on that. Also had some good face-to-face meetings with Congresswoman Matsui and Congressman Mike Thompson. That was primarily to focus on our FEMA BRIC funding. So that was, in addition to me, carrying the interest of the regions and the cap-to-cap group as, in total, I was always looking out for our Sabufka interest. So FEMA BRIC was the primary item that was discussed out there, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Also, lately, we've been doing a lot of state lobbying. So we've had a lot of meetings lately. We have a handout from Senator Daly and Assemblyman Gallagher on a request for $5 million to help the agency advance our Sutter Bypass East Levee Phase 2 project. So our state lobbyist has been setting up a lot of different meetings with Senate budget consultants, a lot of the Assembly and senators that would help us advance our goals here. So we've been having a lot of good dialogue to look for the state to budget $5 million to advance our Sutter Bypass East Levee Phase 2 project. Also, as part of my, I'm on the California Central Valley Flood Control Association board. We've been meeting with a lot of the same folks at the state budget committees and Assembly and Senate to advance our interest for the region in terms of getting FMAP money, which is Floodplain Management Assistance Program. So it's actually direct money that the state gives to levee districts to help maintain their systems. That money had run out. It was not included in last year's budget, and we're hoping to get that back in. We're also asking for additional money for regional planning work. Sean talked about we're in phase 5 right now. We're looking for phase 6 money because that allows us to keep participating with the state updates their Central Valley Flood Protection Plan. They have to update that every 5 years. And by providing revenues to agencies such as ours, we have better participation in that project and we can ensure that our interests are being met. Also, we're looking for funding for rural levees under Prop 4. So we've been advancing a lot of those discussions. We've probably had 10 to 15 meetings in the last 2 to 3 weeks, and we have more planned for tomorrow and next week. So there's a lot of advocacy work going on right now. Here's the talking point. So this is for Sutter Bypass Phase 2. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but this is how we're trying to convince all the lawmakers that it's a great deal for the state to invest $5 million in Sutter Bypass East Levee Phase 2 by leveraging local money from Sabufka and private money from Calpine. So it's for the state to be able to invest $5 million and get $10 million back and have a program that helps them reduce their liability on their state-owned and maintained facility, we think is a very good deal. And these are the talking points. I'm going to email these to everybody on this board, because it'd be good for you to have if you're having, an elevator conversation with your favorite congressman or electeds here in the state to help us move this thing forward. So more to come on that. Okay, so here's an update on Tudor Flood Risk Reduction Project. We're in construction season 2. Our contractor has mobilized. They've started construction. They've degraded the levee where the 2 pipes are going to be installed this year. They're installing dewatering wells now to reduce the groundwater in that area so that they can excavate down to where that at-grade 36-inch pipe needs to be installed. So we're busy in Phase 2 construction. We've had some issues with 2 trees on the water side near the outfall structure of those pipes. We're hoping to maintain those trees, but they're very close to the excavation work, and we've been coordinating with California Department of Fish and Wildlife. If we have to remove the trees, what sort of mitigation needs to take place? So we're hopeful we don't have to take them out, but we can if we need to. We'll just have to mitigate for them. And our contractor is projecting construction to go through the summer and then cleanup and finalization in early fall of this year. For Sutter Bypass East Levee project, the 5-mile repair, we're at 100% design level right now. We've issued those plans to our partners, Department of Water Resources and the Army Corps, and also our independent panel of experts. So those plans are under review, and we expect to receive comments by the end of the month, at least from our independent panel of experts. So we'll continue advancing that work. We're having conversations with the Army Corps now on advancement of our 408 approval so that we can have the rights to get in there and do the work, hopefully next year if funding comes to fruition. So in that regard, we've been really coordinating very closely with Cal OES on our FEMA BRIC grant. So I've been talking about this for quite a while now. We were selected to be awarded the BRIC grant in 2024. And then the BRIC program got canceled in 2025, so our funding went away. So we pivoted over to HMGP, the Hazard Mitigation Grant program that FEMA administers. We finished that application, turned that into Cal OES, and then the BRIC program got restored. So good news there. It did require us to do some work on HMGP, but a lot of that work can now be included. So what Cal OES is going to do, they're going to update our BRIC application to update it to current conditions. So instead of being at a 30% design level when we first submitted, we're now at 100% design level, and we'll be shovel ready next year for next year's construction season. So we're going to compete much better. We're going to show much better to FEMA with the current state of affairs of where we're at in this project. Cal OES is now that FEMA got funded, they're back in the office as of last week. Cal OES is reaching out to get a better sense of where we're at on the BRIC program and what we need to do to get our funding in place. So we're really excited about that. And we're going to continue to coordinate very closely with Cal OES on the BRIC program, and I'll keep the board updated. But as far as we see it, it's very good news. I don't want to get too excited, but we're back in place here, and we'll see where it takes us. So more to come. And also Calpine's doing a lot of work on our behalf. So I wanted to mention that, not only on the BRIC funding, so advocating in Washington, D.C., but they're also advocating on our behalf here at the state level for the $5 million that I previously talked about. So that we're getting a lot of assistance from Calpine folks. On the City of Orrville levee repair, we are coordinating with, so Butte County has gone out there. They've received funding from the state for a flood safety plan that will be performed on behalf of the City of Orrville. So that was one of the recommendations from when the Army Corps did their one-time levee safety inspection for the city. So we'll continue to participate in that, and we're going to continue to advocate for funding to advance some geotechnical analysis work for the City of Orrville's levee. And then lastly, on this slide, I still have monthly meetings with the Corps to close out the federal project. Our credit packages have been approved. The Corps is now looking to transfer a good portion of the credit that was achieved on the Feather River West Levee project down to the Sajafka project. And then once Sajafka can start utilizing that credit, we'll start getting those revenues. So as we talked about earlier on the budget, we've taken that out of our budget. So that'll be gravy when that starts coming back in, hopefully in the next year or two. On the OWA Robinson's Riffle River Restoration Project, this was, the big grant we received last year from the Wildlife Conservation Board. Chris's design team is at 100% design level, or they soon will be, and they'll be sending those plans out to our partners, DWR and California Department of Fish and Wildlife. We're pushing hard on design, on permitting, on FERC approval, on all the approvals necessary so that we can get into construction next year. We're hoping to be able to bid this project later this year, open bids, award a contract, and be ready for construction in January, February timeframe. So a lot of work happening on that project. On the Thermalito Afterbay Boat Ramp and Campground project, we working very closely with DWR. This has been a roller coaster ride, trying to get FERC approval. And they just came back to us, I think it was last week, with, Director Connolly was in DC, sent me the letter right away, and we had just gotten it. FERC was asking for 4 additional information requests, so we're packaging those up, working with DWR to get those back to FERC. And ideally, once they receive that information, we can get approval to award our construction contract. So fingers crossed there, and we're pushing really hard with our partners at DWR to make this thing happen. And we also want to thank R&R Horn for agreeing to this second amendment to our agreement, pushing our award date out so that gives us more time to get that FERC approval. So right now we're tentatively set for groundbreaking ceremony on Friday, May 29th, but we're going to wait and see where we're at with FERC approval. We might have to push that into June. So we're hoping to make a go, no-go decision this Friday when we have better information. I said last month that I wasn't going to talk about flood season anymore, but as you've probably been reading in the paper, there's now this super El Nino that's forming in the Pacific. And, what that means, nobody really knows, but the potential for higher precipitation this coming winter is a very real thing that we're going to keep our eye on. So we'll talk about that more, as things play out. But I've been reading a lot about it, so I just wanted to make the board aware. I'm sure you've all been reading it too, and we'll see how that factors into what our next flood season looks like. But I just wanted to bring that up this month. And then, let's see, this is my last slide. So a couple of upcoming meetings. So a meeting with DWR in Mid and Upper Sacramento. So this is where we're meeting with DWR on the Sutter Bypass Master Plan. This is essentially to get DWR to understand that we need to fix that Sutter Bypass East Levee in place. That's the proper project for this side of the bypass and probably the other side as well on the west side. So we've been having really good dialogue and meetings with those entities. We'll continue to do that. We're looking at holding a Central Valley Flood Protection Board workshop in June or July or potentially August. So we're not sure when this is going to land. But this is to bring in, this will be a public meeting to talk about what should take place in the bypass, what type of projects, all the regions are looking for, and continue that dialogue in a public setting. So that's ongoing. Our next board meeting is next June. It's in June on the 10th, and that's when we'll bring the final budget to you for approval. And that is the end of my presentation. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman. We'll have a closed session after this presentation. So that's it. I'll see if there's any questions.
Okay, thank you, Director. So I will move into closed session now. Thank you. All right, we're moving back into open session, please. Well, Michael, we had a little discussion. Not too many bad things were said about you, but no, everything was great. We love you, and we'll look for a motion from the board.
Make motion to, I'm not exactly sure how to phrase this, so I'm looking for some help from council to authorize the COLA plus the requested salary increase for a total of 5% for Mr. Bissett. Does that work?
Yeah. Second?
Okay, let's do a big roll.
Second.
Oh, yeah.
I second.
Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Jeff Stevens,
Aye.
Mike Ziegenmeyer. Aye. Bruce Johnson.
Aye.
Bill Conley. Okay. Todd Kimmelshoe.
Yes.
Bo Shepherd.
Aye.
Mark Boomgarden.
Yes.
Michael Pasquale.
No.
Charlie Hoppin.
Yes.
Gary Marler.
Yes.
Jeremy Chapdelaine.
Yes.
Mike Morris.
Yes.
Chris Schmidl.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please don't answer my phone call.
So, okay, moving on, I think is that it? Or do we have anything else? Yep, that's it. We're going to close, hold on, we haven't closed the meeting yet. We're going to close the meeting in honor of Larry Munger. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.